So is Pepsi a good stock to add to your portfolio? Given the current world circumstances, it's no secret I'm very much a fan of food companies, supermarkets, and Pepsi is definitely one of the ones I am strongly looking at. And given the fact Pepsi pay a strong dividend and are increasing that dividend, surely Pepsi is a no-brainer when it comes to building a stock portfolio. Well, I'm not so convinced, and I think there's a little bit more to the picture. Now, before we give a deep dive into the fundamentals of Pepsi, please do bear in mind that this is not financial advice. I'm just a guy with a beard on YouTube, and you should do your own due diligence when it comes to making any investment decision. That said, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing and turning on the bell, and help save a baby triceratops by making sure that like button is turned blue. One like is one little bit of hope to save this near extinct species. If you want to support the channel, there's a Patreon link down in the description. I think we've got 1 or 2 spaces left in the WhatsApp group, so go and check that out. And if you have not got a broker and you want to buy some Pepsi stock yourself, you can buy it via eToro on the pinned comment, sign up, deposit, make a trade, and you get a free lifetime pass. That's right, a lifetime pass to the LWT investing chat room, saving you quite a few quid. So now coming on to Pepsi's fundamentals. Pepsi is valued at around about $200 billion US, definitely not a small company by any stretch of the imagination, and currently the stock is riding around $148 US a share. Now here I do want to stress this video is recorded on the weekend, and obviously the markets are closed. Markets do change, so that price might be quite different by the time you see this. I believe Pepsi do have their earnings soon as well, so that's another thing to consider, and we'll talk on that in a little second. If we go on Simply Wall Street's algorithm, they say that Pepsi is currently 7% overvalued, and again, I'll come on to that in a little second. If we look at their PE and PEG ratio, their price to earnings ratio is 27 with a PEG ratio of 4.1, which, to be honest, in this current crazy market is not too bad. And I can't believe I'm saying a 27 PE ratio is not too bad. A little bit of a concern here would be their debt to equity ratio, which is 310% and can be considered high. But I do want to stress that this is a massive company, and I don't really have a massive concern with Pepsi not being able to handle their debt. They do offer you about a 2.75% dividend at the current price, which is not to be laughed at given the current climate, and they are looking at increasing their dividends slowly year on year. In fact, they just did a dividend increase recently. Now, the bad news in fundamental terms is the insider selling. Over the last year, obviously, it's been a tough year for everybody, but we've seen a lot of insiders selling this stock. We've seen people like Kirk Tanner, who is the CEO of North American Beverages inside Pepsi, selling a decent chunk of his insider shares. Now, this could be so that he can go and buy a yacht. It could be that he's just simply cashing out. But the real worry for me here is there's been no real insider buying. Now, why is that? Because in the middle of the pandemic, we had a decent dip on Pepsi. So why weren't insiders buying and picking up some shares at this discounted price? Now, that said, maybe they were just holding on and seeing what would happen. It was a scary time after all. But if you've got full conviction working for a company, I think it makes sense to sort of try and pick some up in that dip. And to be honest, looking back in hindsight, I wish I picked up some Pepsi then too. Now, going on the chart, we've got this like sort of triple top action. We're actually currently forming the third sort of top on this, and earnings may push this stock over and at all-time highs. But this sort of triple top level is going to be an area where shorts do size in, people do take profits, so the overall market could knock this down, it could knock it up. I think personally for me, it's slightly overvalued, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But if you go on the chart alone, triple tops, when they do break out, can be quite decent for a shorter term goal. I wouldn't necessarily say it is a good place to get in terms of value. Now, Pepsi as a company, I'm pretty sure we all know the bottled Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, and Pepsi Max, etc. But Pepsi actually has a lot more to its business than trolling Coca-Cola in adverts. And on that, who remembers the advert of the little kid down in South America who absolutely trolled Coca-Cola using 2 cans of Coca-Cola to stand on so he could reach the Pepsi at the vending machine? Absolutely brilliant advertising, and I do really enjoy watching Coca-Cola and Pepsi sort of slag it out in the advertising world. And the only downside to Pepsi versus Cola in terms of advertising is Coke is probably winning because, well, they turned Santa Claus red, whereas Pepsi, well, they got Britney Spears.
Leave Britney alone!
But coming back to it, Pepsi do own a hell of a lot of brands. They own Quaker Oats. They actually have a partnership with Starbucks, selling the Starbucks takeout to drinks. You know, you go in Starbucks and you get one to take out, or you go to Walmart and you buy little cans. That's actually a partnership with Pepsi. They also own Gatorade, Doritos, Mountain Dew, 7-Up, and well, the list goes on. So this company is very well diversified, and it's not just a, fizzy drinks company. In fact, their revenues, if you go on them last year, 55% actually came from food, not from fizzy drinks. Now, coming on to the current climate that we're in with restaurants and pubs opening, of course, that's a big part of Pepsi's revenue, selling Pepsi to said bars, restaurants, and street vendors. With these opening, the demand should go up and their revenues should go up, in theory. And I'm pretty sure we've all had that annoying question when you go into a restaurant and you're driving, because if you weren't driving, you should be having a beer or some alcoholic beverage, I believe. But if you're driving and you go in and say, oh, I'll have a Coke or I'll have a cola, and they always turn back and say,
is Pepsi okay?
It's just damn annoying. To be honest, I actually prefer Pepsi than cola, so that's always a bit of a blessing. But let me know down in the comments, is Pepsi better than cola? Standard, not the max, not the diet. Simple terms, standard Pepsi, standard cola. Who wins? Battle it out in the comments. But with these restaurants and pubs opening, that should bring a lot more revenue, and their CFO was actually on TV recently saying that he's very optimistic and thinks that 2021 will be a breakout year and that the company should do very well. Now, in terms of last year, of course, revenues dried up for pretty much every company, and Pepsi was no exception, but they actually came out the other end stronger, I believe. They've adapted, and their business model is growing from strength to strength if we look on the last few quarters. And that said as well, their earnings are coming out very, very soon, so it's going to be interesting to see if that growth continued. But with bars and restaurants opening, I think that will help boost up the earnings of Pepsi and help drive the stock price higher, which is something investors want to hear. So coming on to it, is Pepsi Cola a good buy right now? For me, no, and I'll tell you why. If we look at the pros of Pepsi, we've got a increased and strong dividend, which is definitely a good pro. We have a stable company with relatively low risk of bankruptcy or anything of that sort, so that's another massive tick in my opinion. They have a very well diversified company that offers different products, again, like Quaker Oats, etc. And then the biggest pro for me really would be the market cycle that's coming. We've got Joe Biden wanting to increase taxes. We've seen people sort of slowly cycling out of tech stocks and EVs, and they're looking for a safer investment. Now, consumer staples, supermarkets, things like Pepsi and cola tend to do well in a falling market. Maybe they will fall short term, but the fact that they give a good dividend adds that little bit of relative safety. And I think companies like this will be looked at very, very closely when this cycle does continue out. Now, the cons for me, there isn't as many, but they do outweigh it. First thing is, if we just look on the chart alone, I'd feel like I'm buying a top, in fact, a triple top. And that could mean that I'm sat in a lot of pain. I do think long term, I mean, if you're holding Pepsi now, you're buying it today and you're holding it for, 10 years, of course, I think you'd make decent money along with a dividend. But if I just go on value alone, the chart tells me it's a triple top and it's not so good value. Now, another con is the biggest pro is actually a sort of con, because I think that if a tax is increased by Joe Biden, and that will add a lot of fear into the market, I think the overall market is due a big correction. Might not be a full out market crash, but I think if you look at my previous videos, it's pretty clear how I feel about the market itself. So for me, companies like Pepsi, Cola, Walmart, I'm waiting for these big dips to come, and I'm slowly sizing in what I see value on the chart. For me, and I'm pretty sure for you as an investor, it's quite demoralizing when you see a stock that you know is very, very good down 10% and still falling. For me, I want to make sure I've got enough cash sat around and I'll slowly buy in. Pepsi's definitely on my watch list, has been for months now, and it's a stock I'm really looking at. But I just want to get in on the dip, and I've never had really enough conviction to start scaling in. But in full disclosure, I have bought into Coca-Cola a couple of months ago, and I'm very, very green on that because of this sort of thesis I have of buying value and waiting over time. I stopped scaling into Coca-Cola pretty much after my initial entry, and I'm very, very green on that trade, but I want to wait for it to come back down to pick me up some more of them shares. And that's a strategy I'm going to continue into Pepsi if I get the opportunity. Now, again, I'd love to know your thoughts. Which is better, Coca-Cola or Pepsi? Let me know down in the comments. Make sure you have liked it. Would massively help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, save the nearly extinct Triceratops. That's it from me. Take care. God bless. Peace.